Kim Lee's words were becoming increasingly animated as he read, his voice inflection emphasizing the many details of the battle. I opened my eyes momentarily to take a glance at him as he was reading. He was sitting up straight, holding his head high, and in his left hand, he was holding the transcripts before him for easy reading. And his right hand was making many gestures to emphasize the events he was relating to me. He was totally getting into this. Turning my focus back to the story, I also was feeling animated, but unfortunately I was still unable to express it with any movement. The two remaining Japanese soldiers were visibly shocked by what they had just witnessed. The man holding the spear applied more pressure, forcing the large man to the ground on his chest. Then, removing the blade of his polearm from his shoulder, the two men prepared for their attack. The attack came simultaneously, with both men trying to overwhelm me with their advantage. Blocking the attack came about effortlessly. The man holding the spear thrust its tip towards the direction of my face, and the swordsman began to slash towards the left side of my body. Raising my swords preparing to deflect their attack, I could feel they were losing a battle of confidence from within themselves. I forced the tip of the spear over my head and blocked the oncoming blade to my left. And then I started my counterattack. Rotating the sword in my left hand, allowing the attacker's blade to be redirected away from my left side ribcage, and then forcing the outer edge of my blade over his right arm, and with a quick slashing movement my blade passed through the armor protecting his limb and cut through the steel and flesh effortlessly. Dropping his sword, his right arm became detached right below the elbow. And simultaneously I stepped in between them, lodging the tip of my blade into the throat of the man who attacked me with the spear. And with my other blade, pulling it across the swordsman's Adam's apple. Both men falling to their knees in unison. Both were alive but fading quickly. The activity of this small conflict within a larger battle began to draw attention from both sides of the engagement. The retreating army, now slowing the pace of their flee to safety, began to regroup as they watched. The Japanese invaders, turning their attention towards me, began to attack me in multiple waves. As each man or group of men engaged me, I spilled their lifeblood on the ground around me. It happened quickly and with minimal effort. I could now feel the awareness of a man sneaking in behind me, preparing to attack me by surprise. Thinking I was unaware of his presence, he quietly closed the distance between us. Just before I was able to defend my position, the quiet giant picked himself off the ground, and grabbing the man by the collar and belt, he then hoisted his body over his head and rapidly dropped him on the small of his back across his knee. Following the sound of his snapping spine, the large man pushed his limp body off his knee onto the ground. Then, standing up, holding his hands over his head to indicate the victory over his lifeless opponent. The air filled with the sound of cheering and battle cries as His Majesty's troops began to return to the battlefield with renewed confidence. The armory captain started shouting orders to attack, and a smile of relief beamed across his face. The large man now approached me, putting his hand on my shoulder. I pulled back the head covering, revealing my face to him. He smiled as he recognized me and shook my shoulder with his large hands in acknowledgement. And then he nodded his head in the direction of the now fleeing Japanese invaders wanting to give chase. I gave him the nod as we changed the course of the engagement. The victory was now in our hands.